On December 8, 1972, a scheduled flight departing from the Washington National Airport located in D.C. was on its way to the Midway International Airport in Chicago, where the flight was expected to arrive for a stopover before it would later on pick up where it left off to head toward the final destination in Omaha, Nebraska, just under 450 miles away. All was good until it came time for what you would expect to be a gracious landing, relieving passengers with assurance that everyone made it safe and sound thanks to the pilot. Of course, everyone on the plane that day was about to experience a life-changing moment within seconds. As United Airlines Flight 553 was approaching for landing, the Boeing 737-222 stalled and crashed, killing 45 out of the 61 individuals on board, leaving the remaining survivors with physical injuries and undoubtedly mental scars they would have to go on and battle for the rest of their lives. Out of the 61 total occupants on board, there were 6 crew members. In the investigation, it was found that during the time of landing, the airport was visible from only 500 to 600 feet due to overcast, and with the plane being at an altitude any higher, the pilot must approach in a specific manner in order to maximize the potential to land safe and smooth without jeopardizing the passengers' safety and lives, including their own. In this specific scenario, the pilot was advised to follow a non-precision approach. In aviation, there's different procedures to follow based on different scenarios and conditions in order to guide the pilot when landing and having to make critical decisions. With a non-precision approach, the plane must be kept at or slightly above but not too high over the MDA, which stands for the minimum descent altitude, which is the lowest point a plane can reach above sea level until a visible runway can be seen, and for Flight 533, it was not to fall below 1,500 feet until it reached the safe checkpoint to do so. This checkpoint was assigned by the flight system to an OMB or outer marker beacon, where once passed, the pilot could then descend another 460 feet, which would be 1,040 feet above sea level, which is 429 feet above ground level, the AGL. When the plane finally reached the OMB, expected to be at around 1,040 feet, the problem quickly grew apparent, as the plane was still 2,200 feet above the minimum altitude, where the final decision to land has to be made. When Captain Wendell realized the plane was way too high, he quickly hit the spoiler speed brakes, rapidly descending the aircraft at a rate of 1,550 feet per minute. Just for context, a usual descent rate is typically 600 to 700 feet per minute, and after reaching the minimum descent altitude, he attempted to level off the plane, but failing to fully engage the throttle, the plane struck into some trees before belly sliding over roofs and finally stopping after crashing into a home. The crash was ruled out of any foul play and was deemed to be caused from mechanical failure. Interesting enough, though, one of the passengers who passed away was a woman, Dorothy Hunt. She was married to a man by the name of Everett Howard Hunt, Jr., a former CIA officer who was behind something known as the Watergate scandal. On June 17, 1992, there was a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Washington, D.C. Watergate office building. Everett was arrested with 4 others responsible, but the scandal part came into play when word on the streets was that President Nixon at the time was in on the break-in and was the shot caller for allowing his administration to commit the burglary, and even went as far as having a voice-activated recording system in the Oval Office. Claims against Nixon left a bad stain on his reputation and ultimately was pushed to impeachment. In total, 69 were indicted, with 48 being convicted, and the Nixon administration slowly came crumbling down. Everett was sentenced to 33 months in prison, where he was released and lived a free man until his passing in 2007. Dorothy's death became a conspiracy due to her being the wife of Everett, and at the time his strong ties to the government or political powers. The day of the crash, she reportedly brought thousands in cash some suspected was intended for some individuals involved with the Watergate scandal. U.S. officials dismissed the conspiracy speculation, but that doesn't mean it's not true. It most likely just means we'll never know. This was the first fatal crash of a 737 aircraft. Fast forward to October 29, 2018, the Lion Air Flight 610 was set to take off from Sukarno-Hatta International Airport, Tangerang, with its destination expecting it to arrive at Depati Amir Airport, Pangkal Pinang in Indonesia. The aircraft en route this time was the newly introduced Boeing 737 MAX at the time, an improved and updated model than previous years prior to its introduction. But just 13 minutes after taking off, the pilot and plane found itself headed nose down with not much control in their hands and time on their side. The plane was in the Java Sea not too long after. It was discovered in the investigation that there was an error in the flight control system, which is what forced the plane in a downward direction. It was also found that the Boeing MCAS, or the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, was purposely kept secret from air crews, leaving them clueless when faced with the fatal situation. The conclusion of the investigation was a software error that caused the AOA sensor, also known as the angle of attack, to become miscalibrated, which basically tricked the MCAS into thinking the plane was at too steep of an angle, which is why the plane went down on its own. The pilots were partially blamed for not following the checklist protocol that could have prevented or corrected the error, but it was too late, and 189 people lost their lives. Following the crash, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration stepped in, including Boeing themselves, citing a warning to operators and pilots a part of the MAX series that they must take safety measures more seriously in order to lessen the likelihood another similar case would occur in the future. But as you're about to find out, this wouldn't be the last time. With the devastating 2018 tragedy lingering behind Boeing, less than a year later, misfortune was hungry and would come back around for seconds. This time, on March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, another Boeing aircraft, was leaving the Addis Ababa Bole International Airport, with plans to arrive at the international airport in Kenya, but again didn't make it, when this time it crashed only 6 minutes after departure. All 149 passengers, along with 8 crew members, were killed when the plane crashed in the Tulafara village nearby. This was notably the deadliest Ethiopian Airlines accident to date. The FAA once again opened an investigation while prohibiting the use of Boeing MAX, while they looked deeper into the reoccurring crashes that took place just 5 months apart from each other. In this investigation, they found that there was a similarity between both crashes, and they had something in common: an error with the MCAS and AOA sensor, almost copycats of each other, putting a spotlight on the clear technical deficiencies and neglect to safely follow flight protocol. Someone was in deep trouble. Years following the 2 highly preventable disasters, Boeing was punished with a lawsuit totaling $2.5 billion in order to avoid criminal prosecution, but isn't innocent of fraudulent activity in order to bypass FAA regulations, endangering and costing the lives of far too many. All of the negativity surrounding Boeing raised concerns for the safety crisis, slowly tarnishing the reputation and public image of the airline company. Boeing is an aerospace company supergiant. From commercial airplanes to space systems, they're responsible for a large number of manufacturing for various industries. With a long track record and history backing the heavy weight behind their name being one of the top aerospace companies, there's just one problem, or a couple, they just couldn't seem to get a hold of, and that's safety. As of 2024, there have been a total of 529 aviation accidents or incidents totaling 5,779 fatalities and 234 hull losses, all involving a 737 aircraft of some sort, each manufactured by Boeing. As if the previous years of controversy wasn't enough, on January 5th, just earlier this year, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 was headed to Ontario, California from Portland, Oregon, when an emergency exit door was blown open due to 4 missing screws meant to secure the door plug. Luckily, only minor injuries occurred, but overall, nobody was seriously injured out of the 177 total occupants. Another hefty lawsuit was launched against Boeing, this time from 6 passengers from the incident, with claims of physical injuries and emotional trauma. All 65 Boeing MAX aircrafts were grounded until further notice, and the next day 18 of them were approved for use again after having the door plugs inspected. But later that same day were grounded again following the FAA announcement that all 737 aircrafts with a mid-cabin door plug installed must undergo a required inspection and proper corrections before given the green light for passenger transport again. Throughout the years, the FAA has been on Boeing's tail, no pun intended. But they aren't the only ones who have the aerospace company on their watch list. They're joined by a group of whistleblowers. Whistleblower, a person who informs on a person or organization engaged in an illicit activity. Every now and then, when a powerful individual or group of people, commonly in the form of a company, feel invincible when committing illegal or unsolicited acts, they face the possibility of an inside member or members exposing them and bringing their hidden acts and practices to light in the eye of the public and government. Whistleblowers are no stranger to Boeing, and more recently, there's been a lot of speculation surrounding Boeing whistleblowers based on the suspicious and seemingly out-of-the-blue deaths for 2 whistleblowers.
A Boeing employee turned whistleblower has been found dead.
Yeah, that employee actually had a retaliation lawsuit that was set to go to trial in just a few months. Tom Costello brings us the latest now.
Among the first whistleblower to die was 62-year-old John Barnett, a former Boeing employee with over 30 years of experience and, as one could assume, quite a few stories to tell. But it seems that someone or a group of people didn't want others to become aware of what he knew, because on March 9, 2024, John was found in his vehicle outside a hotel with a gunshot wound to the head. Mr. Barnett was a quality manager at a North Carolina plant, where he spoke out against the negligence he witnessed firsthand during his time with the company. After his retirement in 2017, he didn't hold back from exposing numerous issues, a main concern being that workers were responsible for being a part of the plane's production were encouraged and pushed to prioritize production over safety, to heighten profits, sometimes even using scrap parts when needed.
From day one, it's just all been about schedule and hurry up and just get it done, push the planes out, we're behind schedule. You know, we don't have time to worry about issues that y'all bring up.
This sounds a lot like the Ocean Gate tragedy, where the CEO of the company was trying to cut corners on safety regulations to lessen costs and maximize profits, which ultimately costed the CEO and 4 others their lives when their submarine imploded due to faulty equipment and disregard of safety standards. Back to Boeing, though, Barnett also included that there were errors with the emergency oxygen masks, stating there was a high probability not all of them would work in an emergency scenario. Boeing denied all claims and statements made by John, even the one time he brought the issues to the other manager's attention only to be ignored. Now, it's good to know there's other whistleblowers who have gone untouched, so to speak. But anyone with a brain would most likely wonder why someone who's actively fighting for the safety of the public suddenly take their own life. Possible? Yes. Is it likely, though? Absolutely not. See, John had just completed the first part of his deposition in the case against Boeing and was supposed to conclude it days later, but he didn't show up. If you're not already getting suspicious, listen to this. A close friend of John by the name Jennifer said she was warned by John that if something happened to him, he didn't do it in his exact words. He said, "I ain't scared, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide." Jennifer, in her own words, exclaimed, "I know he did not commit suicide. There's no way. He loved life too much. He loved his family too much. He loved his brothers too much to put them through what they're going through right now. I think someone didn't like what he had to say and wanted to shut him up and didn't want it to come back on anyone, so that's why they made it look like a suicide." His lawyer also isn't buying it, stating John didn't show any signs of wanting to take his own life, also mentioning he was in good spirits and was looking forward to putting the case to rest. More people than not suspect foul play, and despite it being ruled out by police, they are being asked to do a more thorough investigation. Boeing didn't go more than 2 months before yet another whistleblower with connections to the company would end up dead. This time, 45-year-old Joshua Dean, a man known to always keep his health in check, rarely ever getting sick, went to urgent care after having breathing difficulties, and unavailable to his knowledge, he would pass away 2 weeks later in the hospital after testing positive for influenza B, which was quickly and shortly followed by MRSA and pneumonia, possibly causing a stroke responsible for his passing. His mother requested an official autopsy, but the results aren't immediate and could be a very agonizing wait, as one could try and imagine. Joshua didn't work directly for Boeing, but Spirit, a manufacturing company working with Boeing. Like Barnett, Joshua attempted to bring similar safety concerns, and after being fired for what he claimed was retaliation for him speaking out, he was actively in a wrongful termination against his former employer when he ended up getting sick and passing in a matter of weeks. With now 2 whistleblowers dead, Boeing is not looking too good as lawsuits continue to roll in regarding safety hazards, and calls for investigation have strongly been advised after the 2 strange deaths. Oddly enough, Boeing recently announced they celebrated and practically praised a whistleblower who recently brought some issues to the attention of other members and staff without any harm or danger brought upon them. So it really does make you wonder if this is all a way to play it off and downplay the mysteriousness behind how 2 whistleblowers died under weird circumstances. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see if anyone else is next on their list. Most likely, from all the stress and backlash compiling and stock slipping, the Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun announced his stepping down in retirement at the end of 2024. It's unclear what will happen with the company, but it's been revealed there's as much as 10 other whistleblowers who remain safe, out of harm's way, and ready to speak. Until more truth comes out, most of us can agree that both John Barnett and Joshua Dean both tried their hardest to raise safety concerns, and whether their deaths were foul play or not, they both sacrificed a lot and are heroes for customers, passengers, workers, and pilots. That's it for episode 1 on the Conspiracy Pie channel. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe for your slice of pie on the way out. Until next time, peace.